Hello, it is September the 3rd, 2025. Welcome to September. It's time for our weekly word, and our weekly word is stages. Our key verses are Ephesians 5:15 to 17. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Now, this is one of those where the word stages is not exactly used in the key verses, but they perfectly describe the idea. The definition of a stage is a point in time, a period of time, a step in the process of development. I like that because it's positive and life giving, a step in the process of development. So, yesterday morning, I was reading in Genesis around about chapters 30 to 33 about Jacob and all the trouble he went through for so many years of his life, running from home and mistreatment by his uncle. And on one hand, it was trouble, but really they were stages of growth in his journey of faith. So this last Sunday, a good friend of mine, Pastor Freddie Dupali, was ordained, and we were recounting his faith journey and the stages in his life going back to 1992, and how after he felt that call, he was serving at an orphanage for 3 years full time. And then after that, there was a time that he was an administrative officer with the church for some years. And then after that, he was the assistant pastor. Then after that, he was the senior pastor. Looking back, it's easy to see the stages and how they all work together. Like Jacob's life, like Pastor Freddie's life, like each of our lives, each and every one of us, we're constantly going through stages. And life is not without some major challenges and difficulties, but there's purpose in everything that we're going through. Again, as we reviewed Pastor Freddie's life, it was easy to see the stages where God was developing him when we're looking back. And for me, as we were going through it, there was just this moment of clarity for me that, and this right now is not the last stage. It's not the last stage for him. It's not the last stage for me. It's not the last stage for any of us. But this stage that we're in is just another step in our faith journey. And whatever difficulty we're going through, whatever trouble we're going through, it's what's going to bring the breakthrough into our next stage. When the children of Israel left Egypt, it seemed like every stop they made was a major trial. The Red Sea, just we could go on and on. But really, it was a stepping stone, a learning lesson, and it was bringing them to their next stage in the journey, bringing them one step closer to the promised land. So, am I recognizing the stage I'm in right now? Because it's harder to recognize in the moment. It's harder to recognize because it usually involves challenges. It usually involves uncertainty, things we have not experienced before, things that in the moment seem terrifying. When you look at the life of Jacob, for those 20 years that he served Laban, it was 20 years of difficulty, but yet somehow at the end of it, when you look back, it was 20 years of blessing because he went there with nothing and came out of there with a huge family and herds and flocks and all kinds of stuff. And then after he left, Laban chased after him, but God, the same God who told Jacob that his next stage was to go back home, warned Laban in a dream to be careful how he talked to Jacob. In Genesis 32, 1 and 2, it says, Jacob started on his way again. The angels of God came to meet him. And when Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, This is God's camp. So he named the place Mahanaim. And again, this is amazing to me because it says that he's seen these angels just as if it was an everyday occurrence. God is like affirming his heart. You're doing the right thing. You're headed in the right direction. But then this bad news comes that his brother Esau is coming with an army of 400 men. In Genesis 32 and verse 7, Jacob says he was terrified at the news. And when you think about it, you think, but wait, he just met angels. And God just defended him to Laban. And for the last 20 years, every time somebody tried to do something against him, God turned it for good. He knows God is with him. He knows he's headed in the right direction. But there's this reality that he's never had an army of 400 men coming for him and his family before. In the back of his mind, he knows that he should have handled some things differently with his brother years ago. Like all of us, he's not without fault. So he wrestles with God that night at Jabbok. And his name is changed from Jacob, which means deceiver, to Israel, which means prince with God. He's in this amazing trouble, but in the middle of it, he genuinely meets with God. Something genuinely happens in his heart. And the next day, as he gets up to return home, he was stepping into a new stage. Stepping in is an interesting word because God had touched his hip. And it says that from that day on, Jacob limped. So as he went to face his brother Esau and these 400 men who were still closing in on him, he was facing them with a limp. Genesis 33 and verse 4 says, but Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. This is amazing because it looked to all the world like they were coming to kill him. But God did something. There was a beautiful reunion with his brother. They came to an understanding. And the very thing that Jacob was terrified of turned into a blessing and reconciliation. It reminds me of that Goodness of God song that says, for all my life you have been faithful, and for all my life you have been so, so good. When we think about stages, the older we get, the more we think about this last stage we have here on earth before we transition to heaven. And we know in our head that heaven is nice, but sometimes as humans, people still have fears or are even terrified when you mention words like death. But if we just keep walking and growing in faith in the stage that we're in right now, when we get to that step, we're going to be ready, and there's going to be grace to step into that next stage. And we're going to realize that if we've been following the Lord, there's nothing to be terrified of because it's going to be blessing. So I got a few questions regarding this. Question number one, are we recognizing that the difficulties we're facing right now are the stepping stones, the vehicles of breakthrough to our next stage in the faith journey? Question number two is a hard one. Are we recognizing the lessons that God is wanting us to learn in the stage we're in right now so that we get it, so that we pass the test? The children of Israel had trouble with that in the wilderness. Deuteronomy 8 and verse 3 says, he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. God had a purpose in all their trials, and it was to get them one stage closer to the promised land. Question number three, are we remembering that wherever we're at today is just a stage? It's not going to last forever. It's just a step in our journey. So are we taking time to enjoy the stage we're in right now, while at the same time looking with hope and expectation for the next stage? Because God is faithful, and even things that might seem terrifying, he will turn into a blessing. As we pass through each stage, our faith grows because we're experiencing God's faithfulness. So going back to our key verse again, Ephesians 5:15-17, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. My prayer is that we look carefully how we walk, and my prayer is that we walk in wisdom and recognize and understand the stage we're in. My prayer is that we make the best use of time and understand what the will of the Lord is. So God bless you. Thank you for listening to the end. Have a wonderful week.